Hey there, Banditos. Welcome to the Friday episode of the Dollar Bin Bandits. I'm Mike Farah, and today I have my second interview of the week with another great creator. His name is Kyle Starks, and you may know him as the longest running scribe on the Oni Press series Rick and Morty. That, of course, comes from the adaptation of the cartoon. And he also has done so many different projects, a lot of his own stuff, including Sexcastle, Rock Candy Mountain, I Hate This Place. What else has he done? Barfly with Dark Horse and Those Not Afraid, which is coming out soon. He is also the man behind certain Marvel and DC books, things like Peacemaker Tries Hard and the recent Lobo cancellation special. So he's all over the place. He's a writer artist, though I think primarily he's doing a lot of writing right now. But we get into everything in his entire career, and he, is just an explosion of creativity. So let's get to it. This is Kyle Starks, creator Kyle Starks on the program. Kyle, thanks for showing up.
That's me. Thanks for having me. We love to be had, so
Awesome.
to speak. Not to be conned, not to be had in that way.
No,
Uh,
we
to
don't.
be in a place, I guess.
To be hosted.
Yeah, we love to be hosted.
Hosted, not had. We won't cross that line. All right, so let's get to it. We're going to go in
Okay.
the rewind machine and ask our first question, which is, how did you first discover comics?
Oh, man. I turned 48 this month, which is not ancient, but in my life, it's very old. And I've definitely forgotten more things than I can remember. We've always had comics. I don't know why. My suspicion is my uncle's name is Tony Starks. And since he was a high schooler, and he's older than me, since he was in high school, he kind of had a gold and silver age comics like mail order business, which is crazy to be like, I don't know, my uncle's interesting. Anyway, so he's always had comics. My parents were not readers. I don't know why we had them, but I definitely learned to read from comics. My brother always had comics. We had a weekly pool that was a reward. Um, they've just always been there. Like I don't know how they got there, but once they got in, they did not leave.
It just always existed, and you happen to have a
Yeah.
timeline that overlapped with
I,
them.
I was talking to a retailer this weekend actually, and like it's sort of crazy to me. Like my parent, I never like if I found out today that neither one of my parents could read, I don't think I'd be really surprised. They never read a book. They never. I think my mom read the newspaper. I say that. I think my mom read the newspaper. So I don't know why they drove us every week, to this
Yeah,
store to get. But the store was a video rental store too, so they were probably renting videos. It probably wasn't like to put and of course it wasn't that much money then. It was like 60 cents or less, probably an issue. But still, like what a like for them to encourage that, and I don't know. It's like I don't know why they did that, except for I guess it's like just like any parent. You're like, I'm just glad they're reading anything, like he's like, I'm just glad they're, I guess, not shooting fireworks at each other, which probably cost more than comics back in 1982 or whatever. But yeah, it's one of the things I think like one of the things like why did that happen? I'm glad it did. Obviously, like it's worked out great for me, especially now. But like I don't know why they encourage that. I don't know. I should ask my mom. That's we're both near death.
so yeah, well, we could get on the couch. We could do a therapy session if you want. And
Not
I don't
yeah, we just
I
need a
don't
time
know.
machine. Yeah, we need a time machine. I should ask her. It's funny and stuff like that. It's just like something just happened. Like my very first comic I did, which again I think was I was old when I made it. I was in my 30s, but it was a wrestling comic, and I was doing interviews and podcasts to sort of promote it. And someone was like, "When did you start? When did you start watching wrestling?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, but my grandmother I know used to take me to wrestling shows." I was like, "I'll ask my mom." Like, "Mom, when did I want to answer this question? When did Mama, that's my grandma from I'm Southern Indiana, not Mima or something called Mama." I said, "When did she start taking me to the wrestling shows?" And she's like, "Oh, she took you in the baby carrier." So like, I was like, oh, when did I start liking wrestling? Oh, I guess from birth. Like it was ingrained upon me. So just like I don't remember ever the first time going, or I couldn't tell you what my first comic was. I can tell you the first comic I bought, but I always have to look up the number. I never remember the number, but they were just always around. So like when they started, I don't know, but probably my uncle's fault somehow. Probably my uncle and I did my older brother took to them, and so I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, it's not a good answer. I don't have a good answer, but I like to think about it because it's like I don't know. There's just some things that are always in your life that aren't family or like if you live on a farm, I guess chickens or whatever. It's like I don't know, comics, man.
And did you just read them and sort of like throw them around and recycle them or throw them out?
Well,
We
I mean,
weren't
it was just me. It was
recycling
just
back then.
yeah, it was
Or
just
were
me
you
and my
did
brother.
you start collecting them immediately like you had, had them in a pile and like always wanted to get,
Yeah,
the next one?
collecting's a weird word, and it like, and also it's like my relationship was always different. Like we kept them, you know what I mean? But like I I wasn't bagging and boarding.
Oh, right,
Like
of course
there
not.
was none of that. But you
Yeah.
could because there was no trades then. So if you wanted to reread something, you had to have it or acquire it. Um, I will say my brother always had far better taste than me. Um, he always got cool stuff. Like he was early on, even like Eight Ball. He was early on Vertigo. All this cool stuff. I had like I know I tell the story often, but I had like the most basic pull list you'd have when as a little kid. It was literally I don't want to mess it up. X-Men, Hulk, Spider-Man, Justice League, maybe one other thing I'm forgetting, but this was the period of time when Justice League was in Detroit. Spider-Man was fighting Fire Lord. They were terrible. And Hulk was in the Crossroads dimension. Like those are three terrible, objectively bad periods, like truly bad periods of those. Maybe not that Hulk run, but that wasn't for kids. It's like these weird sci-fi stories, like one and done sci-fi stories as he went to random alien planets. And anyway, like it's kind of a bad period. Like Justice League Detroit is famously bad. X Men, I was always an X Men guy because X Men was the best. But I think because I sort of read these sort of like I kind of got the worst periods. Like I really like minor characters that no one cares about a lot. I've always drawn to the things that other people don't care for, and I think you could even see that today and sort of the things I end up doing. My brother's always had really good taste, and because of him, I got access to the good stuff. But probably without him, like I don't know, I'd probably be a culturalist, uh, low tier comic dude. But yeah, and I don't think those books were good. Like his books were better. You know what I mean? Like I was still kidding. Like someone has to get Spider Man and Hulk. Someone has to.
I mean,
Uh,
a lot of
he
people did.
he had like Burns FF run. You know what I mean? And I'm like reading like Leapfrog versus Spider Man. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like he's better at this than me. So brother had all the good stuff. For a long time. For a long time until I caught up on my chops. But yeah,
Well, at
we
least
read.
he
I remember, and
was.
I'll tell you, I remember, and you can kind of see this in my writing. We because like my mom was like, oh, they thought I had a learning disability. They thought I had a learning disability because I was so slow to read. But the reason why is that my brother would read everything to me as a little baby, as a little kid. So like,
Yeah.
why would I bother learning to read if this guy is just like hooking it up? And I another thing, like for a long time, I would never read the captions. I'd only read balloons. I don't know like why I was just like eschewing captions, but even today, I'm writing a book right now that actually has like a fair amount of captions. You'll see like I almost never use captions because I think maybe people don't read them because I never did as a little kid. I think what are those boxes going to say?
Yeah. The picture should say everything other than what's coming out of their mouths.
They're talking and there's a picture. What's a
Exactly.
box going to say?
Right. Yeah. Stupid
That's a
boxes.
funny little. You can see that in my work. I very rarely use captions, but not for that. I think it's just because it's like I don't use thought bubbles either. You know what I mean? Like I feel like
Right.
I like for you to see the thing that is the thing.
Yeah. You're in the scene, you're in the action, you're not in somebody's head or, a
Yeah.
narrator's
I I also
perspective.
think those captions are often in modern comics best suited for people who are able to write poetically or to turn a nice phrase or to build drama that way. And it's like in 2025, that is not a strength of Kyle Starks's. Um, so I see the value of that. I see the value. It's like that's just not how I tell stories. But I think those are the people who benefit the most from those captions are the very writerly writers.
Hmm. I can see that. Yeah. When I think of captions, I think of, the more, I guess, austere,
Yeah.
uh,
I mean,
writer-ish comics.
I don't want to. I can't. There's a phrase for like when you say something that suddenly like will draw your attention. I can't think of what it is. I don't want to be that guy. But look at your captions and see. Be like, this guy probably doesn't shouldn't be writing captions, and then you'll read something very good. I say it off the top of my head. like Jason Aaron. Jason Aaron writes really good captions, right? Uh, Alan Moore writes really good captions.
Yes.
Like just pick up like a middle tier. Be like, what are they trying to do here? They're telling a lot of exposition. It's either I think they should exist only for additive value, not like expository or well, unless it says next day are you know what I mean? Like it's telling you like a
Yeah.
scene change. That's functional use of we did want to only talk about captions, formulist caption conversation, right? Isn't that what you said? I feel like
Yeah.
everyone,
Yeah.
the only time that everyone should use them is for stuff like that. Next day, 2 hours later, Joan's apartment. But look, writers, like the good writers, and I want people to think I'm a good writer, but people who are very writerly, they murder captions. Like they go to town on captions, and you're like, it's so additive. Otherwise, like I like people to exist in a scene, like you said earlier. So I try to avoid them, but
Okay. So a few more
right,
caption questions.
yes, What color should they be? Yellow. Keep going.
How do you
Unless
feel
it's
about
two speakers.
ellipses?
Captions. I'm a
Captions with
classicist.
ellipses, so they're
Oh,
leading into something.
well, I'll tell you what. This is a joke question, but the real answer is it will depend on your editor whether or not they want ellipses or double dash. That's a true thing.
Hmm.
A lot of
Okay.
people, and I think because of the nature of like comic lettering, they
Yeah.
prefer to do a double dash because it's more visibly. Sometimes a single dash. Usually, it's a double dash. I think it's more easily to consume visually, which is interesting. Makes a lot of sense. I will tell you, when I read something, I like an ellipses because if it's used correctly, because it's foreshadow. It's foreboding. It's foreshadowing. It's
Yeah.
like I don't know. I do like an ellipses. I have a friend. I'm not going to say their name. They like to send. They're older too, but they like to send me text that has an ellipses that has like 5 periods in it, and it makes me so mad because it's one, uh, completely incorrect usage of ellipses. Two, why are there five? What a waste of time. You only have to put three. Why are you putting 8 periods in your ellipses to me?
You think there would be a button on the keyboard, whether mobile or in, regular keyboards, that's just like ellipses, so
Just
nobody
three
has to
buttons.
think about it. You know what I mean?
I agree.
All right. All right. I guess we should get back to how you made comics a career from
Oh,
this early interest in or sorry, not interest. They've always been around, right? So I gotta
yeah.
wrap my head around it.
Well, not always. I mean, from the beginning, you want the origin story? Is that what we're doing?
Well, yeah, what do we, when did you make, I guess, a transition in your, young mind to being like, I
Never.
love
As a
these
young
reading
mind,
these comics. I want to make them, or that there are
no.
people that make them.
Um, so that's the thing that I always knew people made them. Like that wasn't a surprise to me, like because I think because like I followed like I like John Byrne was my guy, right? Like so if John Byrne, like I know they're making them. It's clear to me. I like this writer, I like this artist. So um I never had that thought. No one likes to hear that. I had no intentions. I had no intentions of doing this. I had zero intentions. I loved comics. I worked at a comic shop. That was also a video rental store. That was a used bookstore. That was a baseball card store. That was a pornography store. That was a used music store. Um,
Well, you're hitting
and
all
I
the
love
highlights.
comics. I liked all those things. Baseball cards the least, but I like all the other things, all on the same level maybe. Um, and I like comics. When I was in high school, I made like some zine stuff. I tried to do like a 20-page comic. It never worked. Like 20, that's back then. Back then, 20 was small. I never finished like a real comic. And I was going to go to college to be a fine artist, which is hilarious to adult me. I was working at an art gallery. I went from the comic shop slash video rental store to an art gallery. I was going to go be a fine artist. I did not. That was not going to happen. But basically, when I graduated high school, it was 95. And with all due respect to the hard workers of this industry and its history, those are terrible comics. There's maybe five good comics that had any joy in them on the like it just was a dark time for comics in my opinion. They were pretty joyless and they were all very serious and they weren't very successful and I got out of comics. I was like this isn't fun for me anymore and I sold that whatever collection I had to my uncle who then sold them for 7 times what he paid me, I'm sure, which is neither here nor there because I was done with it. I kept one box, which was like my DP7s, because I was like, I'll never get more DP7s, and a bunch of first printing Bones because I was like, oh, I can't get these again. Yeah, now it's like you could get like I was never gonna get a copy of Bone. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they put it out. It came out, Kyle. They collected it. It's pretty popular. So like I had a very small. I mean, I kept like one small box is all I kept. I went to college. I went to art school, so to speak. It was just, a D2 college that had a very strong art department, and I was going to be a painter. And I realized, about 3.5 years in, like I had a better chance of getting drafted in the NBA than professionally doing this. I just did not have. I wasn't good enough, so I took some design classes. This is my origin story. I took some design classes, um, because I was like, I better have some talent. I better have some skill. I went and applied for a graphic design job at a newspaper. They said that position's already filled. Do you want to do production art? I was like, I don't know what that is, but I need a job. And I did production art for years. I went from a newspaper to newspaper. Then I ended up at a really great union plant. I know this is the boring part. I was like, this is my job. This is my life. It's a union job. This place has been in town for 150 years. It's the most respected place to work in my town, in my opinion. I think that's still true. I got married. I got married at one of the newspapers. We started having kids, and this would have been probably 10 years ago. So I was 38, and I was drawing a little bit more than I was, but I hadn't really drawn anything in years. I was just trying to get laid and drink a lot. So I had my first kid. I said, oh, we're about to have my second kid. I was like, I'll never have free time again. I'll never have time to myself again. My time is now these children's. And so I made a list of all the things I wanted to do before that next child was born. And number one on the list was finish a comic, not make a comic, not do a comic. Is very specific wording because I never finished a comic. And so what I ended up doing was solely online, not promoted at all. I did a 180-page graphic novel, which is dumb, and I don't recommend that, but that's what I did. It got discovered. I did no promotion. People were like, you should start going to shows. I said, okay. I don't know why. And they're like, because that's what people do. You meet people. I said, okay, that sounds great. So I did a Kickstarter for that book. I used that money to go to some conventions. Um, the second convention I went to, it was Heroes Con in Charlotte. I sat next to Erica Henderson, who had nothing. She had prints of Guy Gardner and Blue Beetle, and I had one comic about wrestling that maybe people wanted, people didn't want, but I did like the conventions. I thought they were really fun. I thought, what a great hobby I have that it doesn't cost me money. It makes me money, and I get to travel. I get to see people. I get to see these other neat people and meet people who like comics like I do. And so the next, I was like, oh, I'm going to do another one. I had my kid. I was like, what I found out is I loved the process of telling stories in comic form. I just loved it. I loved telling stories. I loved drawing them. It just made me happy. I was like, what a great hobby. So I made another one, which I did a Kickstarter. That book's called Sexcastle, which was my first published book. But before it was published, I took it to Heroes Con, like I did the other books. This was probably 2016, 2015. I'm bad at time. Time's so bad for me. And
About 10 years ago.
it was about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit less. It's hard for me. I know that Rock Candy Mountain came out in 2017. So I don't remember when the Kickstarter was, maybe 2 years before that, or it's tough to, time sucks. Anyway, people liked it. People liked this book. And if you go to Heroes Con, this is the actual origin story part. This is all prelude to the origin, Kyle Stark's origin story. So there's this place in Charlotte called Mertz. I was just in Charlotte for a one-day show. Yes, I ate at Mertz. It's a soul food restaurant. It's walking distance from the convention and the hotel. It's kind of something you have to do if you go to Charlotte. I know some people think it's only okay. That's fine. You can think whatever you want. I love Mertz. It's one of my favorite places in the world. Is it the best place I've ever eaten? No, but there's something about it. It's soul food. It's perfect. And so the thing is, though, you can't go there by yourself. You can't go to the sit down soul food restaurant by yourself. I don't think there's takeout. If there was, I don't know anything about it. So you're always trying to find the group. And the guy, someone who worked for a now defunct comic journalism site, which was very critical to my career and several other people's, was there promoting his own work. I was like, oh, are you going to Mertz tonight? You going to Mertz? I'm trying to find the Mertz people, right? Mertz. And he's like, yeah, I'm going, but I'm like, you won't even know I'm there. I don't worry about it. You won't even know I'm there. I just need someplace to sit at a table and eat my chicken. Well, the but was him and his podcast partner were interviewing Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky at Peak Sex Criminals. They were going to have it. They were just going to do the interview over dinner. And so now I'm going to dinner with Chip and Matt Zdarsky at, again, Peak Sex Criminals was a thing. And I was like, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. He introduced me as, this is Kyle Starks. He made the best comic of the year, which is a crazy thing to say to Matt Fraction. Peak Mac Fraction, right? And so we go to this dinner. I'm not going to say shit. we don't go to Mertz. Mertz is too busy, which I knew it would be, but that's neither here nor there. I thought maybe they had some pull. So we went to this terrible pizza place, and what happened was at some point, newspapers came up because Chip worked at newspapers. I worked at newspapers. My brother's a journalist. Like I chimed in, and you end up conversing like once you open the doors, and it was a lovely talk. And Matt was like, at the end of the conversation, Matt Fraction says, "Oh, I'm gonna come by and get that book tomorrow." I was like, "Oh, great." Um, well, Sunday, which was the next day, came around, and Matt Fraction does not come to my table because it's busy. And here's the thing I know about Matt: he's legitimately one of the nicest people in comics. He's definitely the type of person who will walk around convention before and buy things, and some of that is just to show, just to support. You know what I mean? Just to show that there's money to be made. Like, don't give up. Like comics are great, making comics are great. Like that's Matt Fraction. He's legitimately one of the nicest guys in comics. And I'm doing that thing where it's like I don't want to leave my table, but he said he wanted the book, and I was like, maybe I'll run it over. I'll run it over there, right? So I run over to Matt Fraction's table. Here's who's at his table is Chip, him, Kelly Sue. Peak Saga on Sunday. I no exaggeration. The line is still literally all around the edges of the convention floor. It's sex criminals, and I'm like, there's no fucking way I stand in that line. There's no fucking way I stand in that line. Sorry, I'm cursing. There's no way I stand in that line. You can edit it out.
Fine.
And so I tap on the end of the table. All three of them turn to look at me, and I have my stupid book, Sexcastle, my self-printed Sexcastle. I'm like, hey, you said you wanted to pick up my book. I thought I'd just bring it by. And Matt goes, he goes, oh yeah, how much do I owe you? And I'm like, my dude, like nothing. It's an honor you showed any interest at all. And in a quote that is famous in my house, it's my wife's favorite comic quote, my favorite experience. Matt Fraction pointed at me and he said, pros get paid. He said, pros get paid. And he gave me $20. And I was like, I did it. I'm the greatest that ever lived. So you go, oh, that's a pretty good little story about you being kind of a jerk and butting in through the line and holding it up. But so here's what happened. Here's where it becomes my comic origin for real. But I feel like all that prelude matters. Is that his plane didn't take off in time, and because his plane didn't take off in time, some of this is speculative. And I know Frat, or Matt, I consider Matt a friend. We're not close friends, but I could probably text him and ask him, like, is this what I know from my experiences now that you'll read stuff in your bag and people give you stuff. Like you just have stuff. And most of the time it doesn't get looked at. Sometimes it does. His plane didn't take off and he read my book and he liked it. And so he started tweeting about it. And I sold 6 books. And I was like, this is so great. One, someone likes my book is always thrilling. Someone who at this time I'd say Matt was one of the 3 most important people in comics at that time. And that's probably debatable, but I think you could make an argument that he was one of the most important people and most read and most popular. And he sent me an email and he said, do you want to talk to Image? And I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm like, sure. Like, why not? Why wouldn't I? And so he sent this really lovely email saying, you guys should talk to this guy, me. And they go, sure. And it's funny at 48 and being in the industry now for 10 years, 8 years, for 8 years, I'll be 48 this month. So it's literally 8 years professionally to go, oh man, I had no idea what was going on. Because Image's response, which is Eric Stevenson, was like, Kyle, what do you want to do? Which I probably could have said anything. I could have said anything. And I was like, oh, I want people to read this book, this specific book. And so they put Sexcastle in the stores. It was optioned before it came out. It was nominated for an Eisner. My first book was nominated for an Eisner for Best Humor Publication, which is an unexpected start. And because of the attention it got, like what I thought was just going to be a nice hobby became a career. 8 years ago, they closed that plant I worked at. So I had no choice but to either find another job, which was what my plan was. My wife says, do you think you can make comics? Do you think you can make enough money in comics that you could do that for a year? And I said to my wife, I'm like, I think I could do 4 Kickstarters and probably be enough. And what happened was Sexcastle did well. I got Rick and Morty as an ongoing series not long after. Rock Candy Mountain came out a year later. And I just fell into it. In many ways, I just fell into it. But after my daughter was born, I made that one comic and I just loved that so much that it was one of those things. It's like luck and opportunity. You know what I mean? Like I was so ready to tell stories until people could let me tell stories and they keep letting me. So it's been very lucky. But when I was a little kid, if you told, and I just finishing Lobo, like I had all the Lobos, right? I had all the Lobos.
I have all the Lobos. I mean,
If
the early Lobos.
Yeah, the early Lobos, the Keith Giffen ones. I'm talking about Keith
Yeah.
Giffen. To be like, hey, one day you're gonna do one of those, like Lobo. I'd be like, shut the fuck up. And I still feel that way. Like I just did one, and I'm like, I can't quite wrap my head around it because of where my perspective is as a creative professional. But like little kid me, teenage me, mid 20s me, it blow. There's no. They'd be like, "There's no way." I'd be like, "Oh yeah, they're gonna fly you out to London and Mexico City one day." No, no way, no way. Like, yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
There's gonna be stuff happening this year, which is like one of the first things that's like where it's like, oh, like have I made it? Have I made it? I don't know if I have, but I. It's nice that I keep getting to tell stories that people are giving me some small, very small amount, a livable wage to tell stories. Uh, but yeah, it's never my plan. That's a long story. I'm sorry, but I've been known to take over
No, no.
conversation.
That's I mean, it's an amazing story, and not one that I think probably anyone else can tell, especially getting such a late start.
Real late.
And then just having like a big break basically right out of the gate. I mean, maybe it was your second Kickstarter, but still, and
Yeah, my second Kickstarter.
sort of landing in that situation at the convention, and befriending people that can
Yeah,
help you. I mean,
yeah, that are
it's
willing to,
huge, right?
that
Or
are
willing
willing
to,
to help
right?
you too. That's the other like I I say here's the thing. Those two guys, the guy you gotta be careful about naming people from the past. But the guy who discovered me, which isn't exactly true, his editor of that comic site discovered me, but he championed me.
Hmm.
Him, and he's the one who introduced me to Matt Fraction that way. And Matt, who pulled one string, who did one thing he didn't have to do. Like I say all the time, like I'm so lucky. And I tell those guys, I'm like joke. I go, my wife knows. You guys are like, today's the day we're gonna go do a heist, or we need someone. I'm here. Like it like I owe you for this, even if like this career stops this year and I only get 8 years doing it. The fact that I got 3 years doing it is insane, right? It's such a blessing. But those guys will always say, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky that you guys, they're like, well, if it wasn't good, like we wouldn't do it. And I go, well, I'm not saying that's not true, but I'm saying there's a ton of good stuff that no one ever saw. And that's in
Yeah.
every media and every genre. And the fact that somebody saw it and they go, this is worth talking about. And this is true today, even as I put out book, even though I put out books now, like anyone who's like, I like this book and tells anyone else, like what a crazy, like think about that to have made anything. And even one person, even as your mom going, I really like this birthday card you made me, to her friends. I tell my friends at cards, what a great birthday card you made me. Like just that interaction between three people is insane to me. And so for them to do it that big, and since then, I mean, literally, my life has been a bunch of lucky breaks. I was only supposed to do 5 issues on Rick and Morty. They were doing I did 48. Like I made my career because somehow I was good enough to get five more, and then after that, five. So, uh, Peacemaker, I tweeted, and they called me. like, like it's a series of things that it shouldn't happen that way. It's really good luck. All those people will say the same thing when the Peacemaker. They're like, we know who you are. Like it wasn't luck, and I'm like, it's lucky that I said something the way I said it, and you responded that way. You know.
Yeah.
So I'm very lucky over and over and over, and there's a dozen instances in my life of something, me getting an opportunity in a way that you shouldn't get an opportunity. It happens all the time. Uh, and of course, as the further you go along, then it's like, oh, well, you made good stuff. But it's still crazy that, like, oh, I tweeted something, and they
Yeah.
literally replied like in an hour to my tweet. So yeah, it's crazy. I did it real late, which is something. It says something. Like it's never too late to do anything, you know. But there's something about luck and opportunity. That's really where I'm at in this year, is that when those moments hit, there's like, well, not everyone, and I was ready for them, but I was also ready for them because I had no idea what was going on, and a lot of the times because I didn't have any expectations, and I didn't have years of like being in awe of an industry or creators, or like I don't know who anyone is still, unless I've had dinner with someone I don't know who it is. Uh, are like are like I'll never meet them, like the Swedish cartoonist Jason. I love that guy. He's great. Who's talking about Jason? Only me and four other guys I know. Uh, yeah, it's crazy, man. It's a crazy ride. It's a crazy ride. That's some of the TLDR. It's a crazy ride.
um, I like that you recognize the role of luck. Sometimes people don't, recognize that, and I think it plays, a role in probably anybody's success. Not that, you or anybody else does not have the talent, but there are so many people that do have a lot of talent and not many do make it. So,
Yeah, there's a
um,
ton of variables in that. Like there's a million, especially like sitting in comics. I can't speak for other things, but I just heard someone on a wrestling podcast talk about um, how they were grateful for opportunity. Like you get one opportunity and you might be able to make two opportunities out of it. And it's like that's a bunch of it. You know what I
right.
mean? So
Yeah.
it's like I got lucky. Like I did one issue of Invader Zim. I've done maybe two projects that I wouldn't have done if I had in a perfect world. And that's the lowest number of anyone you'll talk to. Because I've been very lucky. I've been very lucky. I never had to take a job because I needed it. Um, I took a job I probably should have done one time. I still think I did a good job on it, but it's like I probably wouldn't have done that. But I did Invader Zim because Oni was like, they're like, do you want to do? Would you like to do an Invader Zim? I was like, I've never seen it. Like I'm old. When I was in college, I was on TV. I was selling drugs at art school. Like I never saw Invader Zim, and they're like, no, that's what they want. And I'm like, okay. So I binged all 40 episodes of Invader Zim on the way home from Portland for Rose City Comic Con one year, and I wrote my issue, and it's not what they wanted. Like incorrect. They do not want fresh eyes. Um, and I said to my wife, I was like, man, you know what? I wish they would have offered me this other thing, Rick and Morty, because I love Dan Harmon, I love Community, I really like this show. Like I think I would kill it. And literally the next week, I get an email. But I earned that opportunity from them liking Sexcastle and me not doing me being professional with. So like, if I wasn't professional, if I wasn't good at a dinner, which is you go, that shouldn't matter. It's like, well, they want to spend time with you. If it's
Yeah.
weird, there's a million little variables, and being older and having worked a million jobs and treating this like a job because it is, and being professional and being somewhat charming, um, like all that stuff adds on to that opportunity. But those are the opportunities. Like the opportunity was that dinner. The opportunity was Invader Zim. It's like that didn't work out. But the luck is they could have offered me name any Thundercats. I don't know. And I would have been like, oh, here's a bad Thundercats comic because I don't like it. But it's like I like this thing. But yeah, it's a lot of luck, man. And even those Eisner nominated, like I look now, like I've been nominated for Best Humor Publication 3 times, but all the other years I didn't get nominated, I would a less confident version of me would have been like, well, I should have been nominated then for this book, this book, this book. But even that is random. So my first book, my first series were nominated for Eisner. Like that, were they good? Yes, but it was kind of luck that they got nominated. You know, so all that matters. There's a lot of luck. I feel like maybe in life, there's two types of people. There's those people who have the benefit of nepotism, and there are those who are very lucky, or at least recognize the moments that they're going to be lucky
Yeah.
to act upon them. It's all very interesting to me. Those are things I think about a lot, and I think that's one of the things that lets me remain being very grateful for each opportunity because it doesn't have. I know it never had to happen. It never
Yeah.
had to happen, and I could just
Right.
been doing Kickstarters for the last 8 years, one book a year for the last 8 years. Who knows?
You could have been happy doing that.
Probably
So you mentioned it a few times already. Rick and Morty, probably one of your largest or at least longest running projects.
for sure.
And you told us sort of how you got on that title. Did you? I was a big Community fan, and came to
Mm-hmm.
Rick and Morty kind of late. Uh,
Same.
did you get to talk to Dan Harmon, or was there any planning with him, or was he basically hands off?
I'm gonna say the two creators, one who we shall not name, Dan Harmon, had nothing to do with the comics. He had zero involvement. If they ever spoke to him, I'd be surprised. I know he knows they existed. Everything else went through the other guy who I have engaged with, who hung out with at San Diego one evening, who I've spoken to a couple times. Um, and literally, in theory, he has complete control over it. Every note was ha ha ha, that's funny. I mean, that's literally like ha ha ha, that's funny. And there was one time I was doing so Rick and Morty, I will talk at length. I'm sorry. When I was little, I loved Star Wars, and then the Star Wars comic was not that show anymore, and it turned me off to Star Wars and to licensed comics. It just quit being Star Wars. It became something else. And it always bothered me because I think if you're buying a licensed book, you want the thing to be the thing. There are exceptions. Evan Dorkin's Bill and Ted is a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece of licensed work. But for me, when I did Rick and Morty, I wanted very much to be more of the same, especially because we weren't getting episodes. It was going 2.5 years between seasons or
Right.
some crazy period of time. And I felt like there's my responsibility. Like I always want to make my North Star is to always make the thing that I wish existed. Always make the thing that I wish existed. I wish there was more Rick and Morty episodes. And I'm going to try to endeavor to recreate the work of genius, literal a room full of geniuses with my one dumb self and a really talented artist. And so there was one time I was doing something. I'm like, I don't know if this is canonically accurate. Basically, Rick was going to be speaking to Beth at a certain age in her life, and so I sent him a message. I was like, hey, like, would this have happened? Could this have happened? Because I don't know what they're doing. So I never wanted to step on their toes, right? And he said, quote, it wouldn't have happened, but it's a multiverse, so it doesn't matter. And that is the Rick and Morty thing. The magic is it could be any version of any dimension and something happened. But I was like, nope. So I cut it. Like I'm just not going to do that. And so I think I think it's still true is that I don't think anything I did was undone by the show, and I don't think that I ruined any future things by the show because I was very careful to try to make sure it was the thing that people wanted, which was more Rick and Morty episodes. And that's probably why I got to do it so long, because I could recreate the voice of the characters and the general tone. I'm not a big sci-fi guy, so that's kind of was the most challenging is to figure out the part that was sci-fi. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's like big dummies, like tropey family. Like I could do all that, and I think that's why I got to do it for so long. But yeah, they were completely hands off, which was great. Which was great for if you're doing a licensed book for them to be like, do whatever you want to do. I'm like, oh, really? Like, and in fact, the only real problem was the licensors because it was technically, um, um, Cartoon Network. It wasn't Adult Swim. It's Cartoon Network. So it was
Right.
ostensibly it was it was an all ages version of Rick and Morty. It wasn't the adult version. So the biggest stuff was that, and then I got to go from no one watching that show, which is how it was when I started, to I mean, like literally the first show I did, I sold nothing, like almost nothing. And for a while, like I'd sell one or two. I'm like, you guys seen the show? It's great. And like, we don't know what you're talking about. And then I did a show the week that they put it on Hulu. Season 1 and season 2. They put both seasons out on Hulu, and so everyone was watching it. I sold out everything at a VIP hour before the show started. Before the show started, everything I brought, I sold out. I was like, oh, great! Like I think maybe something's happening with this show. So I watched it become. I mean, I was there. I was on the right at
Right.
one point in time, and at one point in time, I was the most prolific Rick and Morty creator on the planet. I had more issues than there were episodes of the show. Like that's something for years, for like 2 years, I was the most prolific Rick and Morty creator, and but yeah, it went from no one paying attention and no one caring, and then some of the licensors wouldn't let me use lines from the cartoon, like Rick's catchphrases. They wouldn't let me do. It's like, what's going on? Because like they became so worried about being litigious, like after the point it was so popular. It was very interesting. It was an interesting ride. So the licensor was the worst of everyone. The creators were great, um, and it became maybe the worst licensor I've worked with. But even that wasn't so bad. I was pretty lucky. Again, pretty lucky because it could have gone a million different ways.
You've worked on obviously your own creations. You've worked on these licensed properties, other comic properties, which are not technically licensed, but they're not
They are,
yours.
yeah. They're very
Yeah.
licensed.
Do you like the mix of doing both, like having a little bit of your own stuff and having, playing in someone else's sandbox, or do you prefer one or the other?
I mean, it's a good question, and the answer is I probably like all of them. But the happiest I am making comics is when I'm writing and drawing my own comics, and that's because I'm so type A. Um, but they're each different experiences, right? Like me doing my own thing, like I have complete freedom. I can put 30 panels on a page. My artist, which is on this, it's me. Like he's not gonna complain about it.
Right.
Like I can do whatever I want, and that there's no editors. Um, that freedom's great, but they're different. I like the challenges, like the creator and stuff with other artists is great because you get to do that collaboration. Collaboration is very hard for me, but I've been very lucky. I keep working with great people. Um, Peter Kowalski, I'm doing another book with our third book together. Fran Galan, who did Pine and Mer. Peter Kowalski did Where Monsters Lie, and every horror book from Dark Horse for the last 2 years. Fran Galan, who did Pine and Merrimack, is one of the most amazing collaborative experiences I've had. Like, I want to work with these people. I've been Eric Henderson early on. Chris Schweitzer is my best friend, who I will work with forever. when the opportunity arises. I've just been really lucky in that regard too. Like I've not worked with an asshole yet. I've not worked with a dickhead. I've not worked with someone who didn't do their job. Like I'm not doing my job. Um, so there's something interesting about going into that where, and the thing is, to date, most often it's me going, I have this idea for a creator on series, and they go yes, and then we all go, let's find an artist. So they're kind of, like you're bringing in people to kind of be work for hire on a creator on. So that's interesting, but you got to find the right person, and that's kind of fun, though it can be really frustrating. Um, the big two stuff, I like the challenge of the fact that it's not mine is kind of a perk. Like those are the most visible things, which I like because I tell stories to be consumed. But I like that challenge of how do I tell the Lobo story I wish existed, but also I want it to be Lobo fans' favorite Lobo comic, right? And the same for Rick and Morty, the same for Pet Avengers, the same for Wild Dog, the same for Peacemaker. All those things. It's always how do what is the story that I would find really compelling that is will also be someone's favorite story. Like I want that so badly. I never I say this now. I never to date. I don't think I ever will be the type of guy who goes, I got to put my twist. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I love those characters from a kid for being who they were. I was talking to my therapist today, brag. I saw my therapist today about how like Iron Man, like no one cared about Iron Man until that movie came out, but how what I always liked about him was it wasn't that he had addiction issues, it's that he was so flawed, he was so human. And despite being the smartest, richest man on the planet, like he was constantly battling himself to be heroic. It's like that's what I love. So like if you're like, I'm gonna do an Iron Man story, I never think who's the coolest guy he could fight. It's going to be what's this what that's interesting to me. You know what I mean? Like that part's interesting to me. Um, and how do I make that and then also make a compelling story? So I like the challenge of all of them. The stuff that other people draw that's not me, I like because they're always better artists than me, and so you get to see the big version. But I also never work them as hard as me. And the same for any the big twos. Like I'm only putting so many panels on a page out of respect to their time. Whereas I'm doing a book. I did Karate Prom last. I think I average like 7 to 8 panels. That's my average. Is 7 to 8 panels a page, and I apologize if I make an artist do 7 panels. One page of 7 panels. So there's different challenges, and I think those challenges are interesting. There's perks to all of them. I would say if I could be Love and Rockets, where I could just draw my own thing every year. If I had that benefit, I would probably start doing that. Probably because I do like working with these artists. I do like these publishers. I like working with different publishers and different editors. Though we have our favorites. We're not gonna lie. Um, and it's also been like creatively, like that's always my number one thing. DC has let me be me over and over and over. So it's like DC is high on my list. Dark Horse, Image, obviously Image lets you do whatever you want to do, but Dark Horse has given me only creative freedom. And it's like that's what I'm here for. Like I'm here. I just want to tell these. I want to tell Kyle Stark stories. If you don't want a Kyle Stark story, then I appreciate the offer. I appreciate you asking about me. But it's like I'm gonna. It's gonna be what it's gonna be, um, which is gonna change. It's gonna change over time. Even now, like the next book, the next Dark Horse book is. I say this it's not funny. Like it's not funny at all. I'm sure there will be parts that are funny because there's something wrong with me. Um, I thought I Hate This Place was a very serious horror comic that got nominated for best humor publication. So it's like, what do I know? Like I just embraced it. But like we're trying to spread our wings. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the original question. I don't know what the original question was anymore. I know I answered it 17 times though. Uh,
Yeah. No, I don't care. It was a good answer. I don't care what
oh,
the
what was
question
my
was.
favorite? My favorite, if I had to pick, if you're like, there are three things. There's Kyle Starks doing just my own books, me working with an artist on a creator owned book, or me doing a licensed book. If I had to only choose one, if it was like you get one food for, it's going to be me drawing comics, even though it's a lot more work. There's something about sitting. There's something about the full process. Um, when I try to dictate that to someone else for those other two, it adds the degree of stress. You know what I mean? Um, they'll always do a better job than me. So there's something about, well, they won't do as many panels, so I have to change how I write dialogue. I have to change all these different things. So there's just the freedom of I take that, but I like all of them for different reasons. I like doing all of them as long as again the wording's tough. As long as I'm still doing Kyle Stark's books, like as long as I can do Kyle Stark's books.
Right.
I don't like if you're just like we just need someone to do a fill-in issue on blank. And it's like it doesn't matter what it is. It's like, well, can I do whatever I want? And like, oh no, I'm like, who cares? Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't need to do that one issue fill in. Um, Fiscally, I don't need to do it, right? So it's like,
Right.
why waste anyone's time? Like, there's someone out there who's dying to write that, and I don't need to take the opportunity just because I could. Um, anyway, that's my
No, I
answer.
mean you're in a really good place that way. You don't need to do that. There are some
Um,
people that probably need to do that. You can do Kyle Stark stories and have that creative freedom where, as you've established that, and
yeah,
not have
2025, not
to.
gonna win.
Yeah, yeah,
And
of
I'll tell you
course.
this: there's a ton of dudes in wrestling. What I think is somewhat backhanded comment, but that you'd say that are good hands, and those are the guys who want to do those things. Those are the guys also who like we have to have a 5 issue run on X-Men next week, and we don't know the guy who quit. Those guys are there. I couldn't do that. Like there are people who have there's a skill set, and I could do those things. I just like what's the point? Like what's the like you know what I mean?
Right.
Um, so I like that, and the IP stuff is very much that I like the challenge. Like I'm not, I don't have ideas for anyone. If you ask me, I'll be like, let me see if I can come up with something, and that's my favorite part. Like for sure, my favorite part is being like,
Yeah.
let's come up with something cool, um, and then you have to do it, and then it's work and it sucks. But the coming up with the idea for a challenge is very enjoyable, even with pitches, because people are like, what? They're like, do you have anything? I'm like, what do you want? And like horror, and I'm like, okay, let me see what I can figure out. It's always horror, by the way. Always horror.
Of course. R is hot, seemingly forever,
We
now
love
and
it.
forever.
We love it.
Um, yeah, so you mentioned this already before, and I asked this of Brian Michael Bendis, and not to compare, creators, but you started out as a visual artist and a writer, and you continue to do your own work and do your art. But at some point there was a transition where you're
Yeah.
being asked to write and then have another
Hmm.
artist interpret that writing into their
I
own,
yeah, I get it.
pictures. So, what was that transition like, and was it like rocky in terms of being able to sort of give up the control of what things will look like, even though you're an artist yourself?
No, so God, I wish I had a short answer for one of these. So when I started, I think you like I said, my North Stars, I always try to make things that which exist in the world, but there's other things that kind of they're like not rules, but they're things that they're mottos or whatever. So when I started, I was like, here's what I think you can make a good comic. You can have great art and bad writing. It'll be a good comic. It's great to look at, right? You can have great writing, bad art. It'll be a good comic. Not great comics. Great comics you have to have it's alchemy, right? Or
Yes,
you can have okay writing and okay art. And I said, that's me. I was like, that's where I'm going to be, and it'll be good because it's
that's the
just
sweet spot.
neither one's going to be bad. Maybe not good. They'll be okay. I also always said from the beginning, like as long as someone read any of my things and goes, oh, that was moderately entertaining, that I have succeeded, and that's a low bar also. So that kind of helps. I will tell you, I am far away from that mentally. I try to remember all the time, like moderately entertaining is more difficult than people think and less frequent than people think. I'm like, that's still a pretty good achievement for people to go, I did not feel like I wasted my money on this. I felt like for 40 minutes or however long, like I had a good time. That's my bar. Um, but I knew, and I don't know at what point, because I went to school to be an artist. I took some writing classes and I won some awards, but it was always weird. Like, I'm like, no, I'm an artist though. But when I started making comics and people noticed, I knew it was not going to be my art. People I knew what, if I was going to do more, it was going to be writing. I mean, I just knew it. And interestingly, that Rick and Morty I got because what they were going to do is every 5 issues they were going to bring in a new cartoonist because they had a failed animator drawing the comic and we were doing thumbnails for them. So they had to have a cartoonist. So kind of my first writing thing was me doing thumbnails anyway. Like I'm still doing the same thing I do now.
Hmm.
Um, and so that probably kept it from being rocky in terms of transitioning. But I think kids don't do this at home. I can't say this enough. This is another kind of when I do my things, Sexcastle, Rock Candy Mountain, Old Head, Karate Prom, Kill Them All. I didn't write scripts. I just started drawing them. But I started drawing them knowing the entire story. Like I knew 100% was going to happen. The great thing about those OGNs is I had space to be like, oh, I'm going to do this fight as 10 pages or whatever. Like you can play around with time and space because there's not a 20-page limitation. Don't do that. Like, don't do that. I don't recommend that creatively. Of course, when I went to start writing scripts, a lot of that energy is hard. It's hard to replicate that, the sort of energy in
Gotcha.
my
Yeah.
book. So I have to figure out little knockarounds. And like I said, in 20 pages, what will be lost is character stuff and fight scenes. Like those things both get either erased or shortened. And those are the things I'm good at. Dialogue, you can only have so much dialogue. And I like a back and forth, which means more bubble or more panels. And you can't give these guys that many panels because they're if they're working hard, man. All these artists are working hard. So that stuff was challenging. It was challenging to find like the writing version of me versus the cartooning version of me.
Mhm.
Um, and I think I've always done well. One of the first things I wrote was Dead of Winter, which I really like. I think I wrote all 4 issues in like 3 weeks or something crazy because I was so excited about it. No way, not anymore. Um, there's the thing like, oh, the artists they do such a good job of saying what I'm telling them to say because it's very visual. So I understand we both speak the same language. So it's just me giving them that language. Um, but it's nerve-wracking trying to condense things on a page, like when you're typing words, rather than when I draw things, I go, oh, erase. Like that doesn't work, erase, start over. And so probably before the pandemic, so May like 2018, something like that, I started thumbnailing my books. So I would draw my little books out and then write a script. I was like, this is what it is. So I would kind of be able to keep that same energy, that sort of improv and bouncy energy. And I think you can tell in the books I do and the books I don't. I think not always because I've gotten away. Now I can kind of do it without it to get that energy. Um, but it's less. It's more stressful, but it's more stressful because of how much work can you ask someone to do? What is not going to make it because of space? Like those are the rough parts, not the collaboration part. Like that's not the tough part. It seems like it would be, but those guys. I've only worked with pros. I've been so lucky. Um, and that helps a lot too. I know I just spoke to someone last week and they were like, oh, the artist decided that they could do these 3 pages better than me. And I was like, I've never had that. And if I had it, it would be a dark day for everybody because I'm so type A. Um, but I worry about my scripts because every now and then we get this thing going around the internet where it's like, oh, a script should be this, a script should be that. It can be whatever you want it to be. I say what I think it should be in a panel the way that I would draw it, or better yet, the way that I see it, that I would draw it if I could draw it as well as these artists. And I worry about it sometimes because it goes around like, oh, they should be so short. You can print them out on one piece of paper or whatever crazy thing people are saying this week about a necessary format for something that doesn't have a format. And I will say a high point of last year was Ryan Browne said of my scripts. We did Barfly together, which I'm very proud of. The trade comes out soon. It's very good. And he said, your scripts have everything in it that I think you would want to be in a script. And I'm like, that's correct. So I'm like, they do what I want. They do what I want. So it's not stressful, but just not as much fun. So writing for other people is just not as much. My stuff's fun, pure fun. For them, it's a little bit of work that I tried to make fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Have you ever worked Marvel style? Do
I
you, do,
could not. I could not. And that's the
that's
kind of a thing that,
too
as
loose.
far as I know, there's only one team that does that, that actually does that, that does Marvel style. And that's because the artist is so good. Like, and they've worked together for so long. Like, you can just do it. But man, my stories are so character driven. Like, there's no way because I'd be like, there's gonna be a conversation. This conversation is important. Every issue, there's gonna be a monologue
Right.
or a conversation, and there's gonna be back and forth, and they react. Um, and that's also like that's the thing. I keep like, oh, I just talked about this weekend, which is weird. I love Peter Kowalski, and I love Fran. Fran, Fran, dude, Fran's such a. I can't say enough about how good I think Fran is. The fact that Fran's not isn't working right this minute is insane to me. That no one's just falling on themselves. His characters emote fully. Like you could write the most nuanced interaction and he would nail it. Peter's characters don't emote, but he does everything else so well, and he's the most professional comic creator. He's a dream to work with. But when I'm writing for Peter, I can't write the same story I'd write for Fran, right? But like that again is like that's part of the fun. Like that's the collaborative process. Is that you go to strengths and you know what I mean? And it's like I
Yeah.
like that. I like that a lot. So that's not stressful. I think that's interesting. So there's a lot of things. The first issue is written because I write the first issue sometimes before the artist is fully on, and I go, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that on the second issue, and they get strong. Everything only gets stronger because of figuring out strengths and weaknesses. I like that. Um, So there's pros and cons of both. I like my both. I think I'm still answering a 3 day old question.
No, no. I'm trying to figure a way to get back to captions as we begin to
Yeah,
close out, but I'm struggling
they
with
take up
it.
a lot of space in the panel too, so you have to
Yeah,
consider it,
I was like, I guess, and if you did do Marvel style, maybe the artist
dude.
would be like
Oh yeah,
putting in
Marvel,
space
dude.
for captions
I
that would never
envy.
come.
I Here's the thing. I think that I could, but it feels like that feels like a like not to me. It doesn't feel like storytelling. It feels like a game of like Mad Libs, like comic Mad Libs. And I go, oh, here's what happens. And for an artist, now I've had people like in Six Sidekicks. There's a 3 page car chase in one of them, and I knew Schweitzer is one of the few people in comics that can draw a car chase. And so I'm like, we're putting this in, and in the script it says Chris draws a car chase for 3 pages, and this is what characters say over like you know what I mean. Like I wrote like I'm like this is what they say over those 3 pages, and I think the editor was like, what is this? And I'm like, trust me. So it's like I've done similar things, but I'm so type A. There's no way. There's no way I could do it. There's no way. And not because I need control over every scene, but because there's a way that we could do it that was closer to Marvel method, where I went, here's what happens. I'm going to write out literature style. You know what I mean? Like here's the point. They had this conversation. So it's like, what if I need a seventh panel to get a beat in, and they don't put that seventh panel in, and that beat's lost, and the beat gives you that moment where you go, oh, something's happening. So
Right.
it's like I don't know, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Even for funsies, I couldn't do it.
All right. I won't ask you to do it. Don't worry.
I hope no one
You're
does.
okay. All right. So we know what makes a Kyle Stark's character, Kyle Stark's book. I think,
They're dumb, yeah.
you have a very, skewed, sense of you're not going after the mainstream stories and the mainstream characters. Um, but so what would you say? Well, not what would you say? What do you have coming up? What are the Kyle Stark's stories that we have to look forward to?
This is gonna be my most frustrating question until June of this year. I can't say.
Can't talk about it.
Uh, I can't talk about it. I was asked to partake in. It's so funny because I have to be careful because I'm not supposed to. I was asked to partake in something that I think is a very big deal, and I put all of my energy the end of last year into it. I was basically wrapping up Barfly, which I think the trade's coming out very soon. I was doing We're Monsters Live Volume 2, which I'm extremely proud of. We're Monsters Live is, I think, one of the best things I've done. We're Monsters 2, very good. I think issue 4 is about to come out of the 4 issue series. And those are when those were wrapping up, I put all my energy into this other project, which I thought was going to be announced like maybe in March of this year. It's not going to be announced until June. Um, I wrote another book for Dark Horse that has not been. Oh, Those Not Afraid. I was doing Those Not Afraid too, which is also coming out now, which is about 2 serial killers competing for the state record in murders. Dark Horse issue 1 is the only one out. Issue 2 is coming out soon. You can still get issue 1. I promise you at your store. Um, so those are the things I was wrapping up last year. They're kind of so dark. So Those Not Afraid was the only book I had for sure coming out this year. I finished another script at the end of next year for a Dark Horse book called Devil on My Shoulder, which they haven't announced yet, which is with Peter Kowalski. I'll say it. It's a bloody revenge. It's a dark horror bloody revenge story. I think it's good. It is very dark. It's extremely dark, but I think it's satisfying. And it was just like I was so ready to really put all my energy into this other book, which I still am because I'm still doing it. I really focused on that so that it would be good. I started drawing something. I have 20 pages done. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. So that's another thing. And I suspect after June, I'll probably be very busy. We're kind of picking at things now just because I don't like only having one book. It makes me kind of annoyed, which is hilarious because I remember, probably a year ago this time, I was doing 7 books in December, and I was like, that's too many books. But I feel like two. I have 2 right now. If you count the one I'm drawing, like 3. I like to maybe have 3 kind of floating around. It's like otherwise it feels like I'm not engaged enough. So I think this year's gonna be a big year. I think that announcement is gonna be a huge thing. I think it's gonna be very exciting for the industry, I hope. Um, and it's an honor to be a part of it. And I'm hoping it leads people to my work because I think it's something very good. It's something I'm very proud of. So that's it. It sucks. I wish I could be like, here's all the books I have coming out next year. but I
That's all right.
don't.
We like a little bit of mystery around here.
Yeah,
So,
I'll give in lieu of a list of, it's the thing is it's like you never know in comics. I mean, you're always doing things so far in advance. But it's like you never know when it's going to go from, "Oh, I'm only doing, what a weird, I feel like a brag, but like, oh, I'm only doing 2 books now. One of them I'm just drawing, so it's all work on my part. But to going like, oh, all these pitches were suddenly approved. You know what I mean? Like, oh
right.
shit. Now I got I got the 2 books I'm doing. Everything's a mini series now though. But I have those books. Well, those books all have artists that are going to need. You know what I mean? Like
Scripts.
suddenly there's
Yeah.
no screwing around. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So it's like you
Right.
never know what's going to change. And it's funny. Today I can't. It's nothing, but I had another weird lucky miracle interaction. Like, okay, well that's going to be on the docket now. At least having a conversation. It's like I have all these. I have a few pitches. I was like, oh, you know what? I should reach out to this editor just so I don't know. Like maybe I want to do. I don't know. And it's like, well, Kyle, do you really want to, or would you like to like kind of do what you're doing? Like, I don't know. If I could make it worse on me, I feel like that's always the option I'd like. Because again, it's another challenge. The challenge is kind of keep everything, keeps you engaged and it keeps you like hungry. I think to have a challenge rather than just like rolling things out. You know what I mean? Sometimes that
Yeah.
challenge is too many books.
And we're back. Wow. Kyle, as I said in the beginning, is kind of a whirlwind of creativity. He's got so many ideas, so many stories swirling around in his head. There's always balancing, a ton of different projects. And can't wait to see what he does next because we know it's going to be awesome and amazing. So, Kyle, thanks for being on the show. Everybody out there, thank you for listening and viewing, for rating, reviewing, and subscribing. And we will see you next week with a whole nother slate of episodes. Peace.